Alrighty, so let's kick this thing off from the very beginning, Graham. If you can take us on a trip down memory lane and maybe talk about some of those early lessons in money and entrepreneurship. Where did this all start for you?
Man, I wish I had early lessons in entrepreneurship. I didn't know a business owner growing up. I mean, my parents were school teacher, engineer. I was told to at least implicitly, probably a couple times explicitly told to just get good grades, go to college, get a job. You know how that is. What I wanted to do though was just be a rock star, like literally be paid to write songs, tour the world, make albums. And so I lived on the stage as an actor and as in music, and I just wanted to do creative work. I didn't want to sit behind a desk. I didn't want to think about money. That's what's the interesting thing is I think about money all the time in a good way, and I love it. I'm fascinated with it now. But prior to maybe age 22, I never wanted to think about money. It stressed me out. I just wanted to have plenty of it somehow and be able to do what I wanted to do in my life, which maybe I think that's what a lot of people want, right? With financial independence is they want to do what they want to do, and money gets in the way, but we butt up against money. But it wasn't until I was getting married that I realized, and we got married young. I met my wife when we were in college. So we dated all through college. And so we got married at 21, 22. And I was like, crap, I don't know anything about money. How can I couldn't barely take care of myself. How can I take care of the two of us? I want to be responsible. And I think I picked up a Dave Ramsey book. I think that's where I first started thinking about money. And I was like, oh my gosh, there's so much to think about. And my mind got blown with like compound interest. And that was like insightful for me of like, I don't have to make a huge income to make a great life and build some wealth. And that was planted in me at age 22. And I got fascinated with personal finance. And this was long before I started a business. I didn't start a business until I had to. I lost 2 jobs in 2009 during the Great Recession and had to find a way to make a living. So like I got pushed over the edge to figure out the entrepreneurial thing. And so I didn't even, if it wasn't for the recession, I never would have started a business because I was too scared. Didn't want to go that route. I like security. I like a paycheck. Now I'll never go back. I haven't had a job since. I will never go back. But back then, that's what I needed to get pushed off the ledge and start something.
And so when you think about like pre-age 22, like when you said you didn't want to think about money, it just kind of stressed you out. You didn't want it on your plate. Like, what do you think made you feel that way about money? Like, what made you so reluctant to care about money or to get deeper into it?
Oh, insecurity, right? I didn't understand it. I didn't understand investing. I don't like spreadsheets. I don't like it just seemed like it would just overwhelm me and stress me out. And so I think there's a lot of fear there. And then once you have that belief, it's easy to keep that up, and it's just hard so you need someone to come alongside you, whether it's through your podcast or a book or an actual person to say, hey, don't look at all of it. It's overwhelming if you look at all of it. Here's a couple simple things to think about and make it more approachable. It's like any topic you learn. Like if someone can make it more approachable to you and give you a bite-sized bit just to see what you like, I think people will self-select once they get excited about it and they will dive in deeper. And I just needed that to make me realize, like it's not that complicated, or you can ignore a lot of the complicated things and still build wealth. That was exciting to me. And I still to this day live by simplicity as wealth. Like that is a life mantra for me, both in how I run my business and then how I manage my money. Very, very simple, because complexity just makes me like freeze up and break.
So can we rewind back to 2009? You mentioned you had lost your jobs. I read on your website you were on food stamps at one point. You kind of just like create a YouTube channel out of, I don't know if it was necessity or desperation. Can we just kind of get inside the mind of Graham at that point? Like what was going on the money side? How were you making ends meet? If you were making ends meet, I know you were probably getting some government assistance as well, but I know that's kind of where it all started for you. Like now you're a YouTube rock star. And at that point you just like kind of created a YouTube channel. Can we just kind of go through the mindset there?
Yeah, that was the hardest time for us. So 2009 to 2011, for 18 months, we were on food stamps. They call it snaps now, I think. And that was like that. When I think about food stamps, that was a moment of like white flag surrender, because my wife asked me to apply for food stamps because I'd lost my job. We burned through our savings. I had a little bit of savings thanks to Dave Ramsey. We burned through that. And when that was out, she had a friend who said, hey, my husband lost his job in construction. They're on food stamps. They're getting all this, like plenty of money for groceries. Can we apply for this? And I said, no. I was like, that's not, like, I have a college degree. I've been working since I'm 14. Like, I don't take handouts. And I was a very prideful stance. And so I said no. And then she came back a couple months later and was like, I really think we should apply for this. Can we apply? And so I finally did. I like relented. And to me, that was like waving the white flag of like, I'm a failure. I'm 26 years old. I can't even like pay for groceries. I was super embarrassed. So that's like the context for where I was emotionally. And then what I was trying to do practically, because the only money we had was my wife is a photographer. And so we just had our first baby and bought our first house. We had a mortgage and a baby, and then I lose my job. So you don't want that to happen in that order, but that's where we were. She was trying to take on some like weddings to get a couple of gigs. I was volunteering at our church, like leading the band. And so like they weren't paying me, but they're like, crap, we feel bad for Graham. Let's throw him like $500 a month as like a stipend. And it was like little things like that. My little brother was sending me money to help me out. It was really embarrassing. And then what I was trying to do, here was the thought process, was I had a skill as an audio engineer. I went to school, I was working in studios, and would make records as like a freelance engineer on the side back when I had a day job. And it was like nights and weekends. It was just play money. And it was fun. I was too scared to rely on that kind of money because I saw how fickle it was. And so I was like, well, that's the only marketable skill I have. So I need to ramp up my freelance work. And we had just moved from Virginia to Florida, so I didn't know anybody locally. So I thought I need to get on the internet, start putting out some content. This is about as far as my logic had taken me. Somehow I had the idea. It was content marketing at its best, but I didn't realize it. Put out some content on the internet. I have a better chance of being discovered than if I don't put any content on the internet. Show what I'm doing in the studio with the few clients I do have. And then hopefully people will see that I'm talented, reach out, hire me. That's what led to the YouTube channel, because I needed to make some videos to show what I was doing in the software and show people what it sounded like instead of writing about it. And that was the beginning of the journey. I thought I would try to get freelance work. What ended up happening is people started finding the videos. This is 2010, finding the videos and like saying, this was like the most helpful video on this topic I've ever seen. Could you do a video on this? Or could you explain this? And so I became a content creator for free just to help out these people. And I was like, you guys need to hire me. And they didn't want to hire me as much as they wanted to learn how to do what I was doing themselves. And that was the beginning of my like aha moment of maybe there's a market. And this is so much of what I teach people today is like, whatever you've done or accomplished or figured out, there's other people that want to know how to do it as well. And that could be the foundation of a beautiful business.
And so like to put some time frames around it, how long were you going down this route where you thought this is going to be a lead magnet to freelance before you started kind of swapping and realizing this is going to be something different than what I initially set out to be? And what did that turning point kind of look like from the engagement that you were seeing?
Yeah, so it's probably 6 months of me putting out content 3 times a week, every week, trying to get gigs in between. And when I launched, 6 months in, I launched a course. I didn't know it was called a course. All I was thinking of was different ways to make money. I'd run some like banner ads on my website. I was doing some sponsorships early on. But then I got the idea of, well, I want to teach this piece of software. It's called Pro Tools, like the Photoshop of the recording studio world. And I've done little videos here and there, but back then, YouTube would cap my uploads to 15 minutes. I could only upload 15-minute videos. And I was like, it's going to take so many 15-minute videos to teach everything about this software. What if I just filmed it and it's like going to be like 4 or 5 hours as if I was teaching a friend next to me like I've done before, and then try to sell it? And what I did is like I had a PayPal button and a zip file, and I just emailed out the couple of people on my list and was like, I called it a thing. And one guy bought it for $45, and I got money in my account. He got a digital file. And that was like when the light bulb went on, like, oh my gosh, if I could do a lot more of this, so that's when I was like, maybe this will be part of the strategy, like get some freelance work and then a little bit of this digital sales or whatever it was back then. And that's what got me started. But then I quickly saw as the years went on, like, if I put all my eggs in this digital course basket, I can make so much more money just for my time. Like, why would I chase 1 million clients when I could just do this? And that's what changed everything.
So for listeners out there, Justin and I always like to get tactical on the show. Obviously, you already had a knack for music and you had this audio engineer background. How does someone else get like an MVP, a minimum viable product, something that they can productize their knowledge, what you're talking about? It's like you have this knowledge in your head. You got to figure out a way to monetize it. Like, is there a way to like kind of test the waters. Like, should it be an ebook or should it be an online course? Or like, how do I even go about creating something that people want? Just like anything that you can help and guide listeners to kind of do this for their own skill set, for their own hobby that they might have, for their own, skills and things that they've built over the course of their lifetime so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways to monetize quickly, but I think the most important thing is that you have an audience and you know who that audience is. And so most people want to jump into selling something, and that's the exciting part. But the non-exciting but most important part is figuring out who are you going to serve? Who's your little tribe going to be? And what dreams do they have? What pain points do they have to reach those dreams? What are they trying to accomplish, big or small? I mean, are you trying to help somebody learn to speak French? Are you trying to help somebody DIY fix their motorcycle? Are you trying to help somebody lose weight? And who is that somebody? Men and women, a certain age group? What type of people? Like what kind of, the more you can just think that through, and you can decide in a lot of ways who you want to speak to, as long as there is a market for it. Take some time, even if it's one day, figuring out who you can serve and what you can help them accomplish. Then as far as monetizing, the absolute fastest thing you could do is one-on-one coaching, because you don't have to build anything. And it's as simple as posting on Instagram or wherever, like, hey, everybody, I'm opening up like 3 slots for one-on-one coaching to help people X, help this type of person do this. It could be help, dads lose 20 pounds, whatever it is. Like, DM me if you're interested in hearing more about what it would look like to learn some of this and work with me. And that kind of just throws the net out there to see if anyone's interested. And if they reach out to you, then you can talk through like, well, what are you trying to accomplish? And what are your pain points? And just get to know them like a person, and then make up a package of, well, here's what I do. I have a 6-call package or a 3-month package. You can make it up, make up a price. If you're scared, be cheap. It doesn't really matter. The point is to like sell your experience and your knowledge in a one-on-one capacity that doesn't scale very well, but it's a great way to make money quickly, prove the concept, and really to get paid to research. And with that, if you can have a conversation with one person, you can ask them the best questions and take note of everything they say. Why do you want to lose weight? What would life be like if you lost weight? How much? Like what? And you, in all that, you copy and paste into a Google Doc, and it becomes like real everyday language you can use later in your actual marketing and your sales copy. And it's not marketing speak; it's real people speak, and that's what's going to sell later. And I think that kind of one-on-one is low barrier entry. It's fast, it's private, and it allows you to then catalog, hey, I think if I were to make a little mini course, like an hour, 2-hour mini video course, I would make it on this one little topic that helps people achieve this one specific thing. That would be the next thing you could launch, because you'll know people get stuck here, and I can help them just at least do that. I think when people go to build a massive course or launch a membership site and they don't have any audience, it gets overwhelming real fast. But one-on-one coaching and then lead to a little mini course, that's a great start.
And to just keep the kind of tangible example going, when you were getting started, I don't know if you can recall what your evolution of this avatar or your target audience was, and like how you honed in on it, what it ultimately ended up becoming.
Yeah, so that's a great question. Like, I knew I was helping people record their music, but the who was important. So I was helping musicians, not audio engineers, people that didn't care about audio engineering, but wanted to know enough to get their music to sound professional. And they were typically going to do it at home with their own equipment. They didn't want to go to a studio, and they were on a budget. So it's like home studio, musicians on a budget, which in the music recording world is very different than professional musician in a real studio with a high budget. And so I would speak directly to them. I would review products that were cheap. I would talk about how you can make really cheap stuff sound really, really high end and professional. I would talk about the pain points of recording at home in your mom's basement, the noise outside and the sirens, and like, it's not an ideal acoustic environment. So I would have tips and tricks and hacks to deal with that. So people felt like I was speaking to them with their unique challenges to accomplish their dream. And their dream wasn't to necessarily be famous. It was to put something on Spotify that sounded like they did it in a real studio, and people are really impressed by it and their friends are impressed by it. So I knew that language because these were my actual friends. And like, the secret is that was me. Like, I was the target market, 10 years prior when I was in high school and college trying to figure this stuff out. And so sometimes the best business to start is the one that you go back in time and help you 10 years ago or 5 years ago, or a month ago, depending on how quickly your transformation is and what were you struggling with and where were you looking for help and where were you not looking for help, and then just speak to that person. So that was my avatar back then. And my avatar now is different too. Like in the online business space, there's a lot of gurus that'll teach you how to make money. And I'm trying to not sound like or be like a lot of those guys standing in front of Lamborghinis, holding wads of cash, getting on private jets with scantily clad women. Like that is a target that they're trying to reach. And I'm trying to reach a different target. So I'm going to use different language, different imagery, different values. And we're all teaching in theory how to make money online, but it's a very different group of people. And so you want to think about that.
So something I've seen you talk about, Graham, is giving before you get, how being generous can almost come back to you in multiples. And I think talking about the angle we were just talking about, like one-on-one coaching, creating something that's going to be monetized, that's very different. And it's hard to kind of delineate, should I give this away for free on my YouTube channel or my podcast or my blog? Should I give this information away for free, or should I charge people to like get this information that, you've been learning Pro Tool for 10 years. Like, why would I just create a YouTube video and give all these secrets away for free? Could you just talk about like how to kind of think about that as a creator and how other people in our audience can think about that and figure out what do they want to give away for free via blog, YouTube, podcast, whatever, versus what they want to give away via one-on-one coaching or a course or any other monetized product?
Yeah. I mean, give your best stuff away for free. Like give first. The fear is if I give my best stuff away for free, what do I have to sell? Right. So we can address that first off. And that is, well, that question is very common. My students have that question. And I had to write about this in a book early on. I wrote this book called How to Get Paid for What You Know. I had to address this before we ever got into it because I knew I was going to spend a lot of the book telling them to give away all this content for free. And they're like, I want to get paid. I don't want to give away stuff for free. So how does that happen? And the issue is we're not selling information when we sell our courses or our coaching, right? We're selling transformation. We're helping people get results. And so think about how much content's out there right now on the internet. It's more and more each day. The more content that goes out there, the more overwhelming it gets for people to sift through that content and to know what's good and to know how to curate it all. So a lot of what we're selling in our courses and our paid communities and coaching is curation. Here's everything you need to know lined up linearly. Like here's the path. Just follow the steps, right? Just like a financial author could write a book and he or she has talked about this stuff on a podcast or a radio show and you could listen to all the episodes. But if they had a book with their step-by-step plan, that's curated, linear, much easier to digest and take action on. So I'll pay for that curation. 2, with the online course, you're paying for depth because I've got hours I could spend with you really diving deeply into a topic that in a 15-minute, 10-minute YouTube video, I can cover a little nugget of it. But if I really want to nerd out on it, it's going to make more sense inside of a course. So we can dive deeper. So there's depth. There's access and proximity to you, the content creator, right? Inside of my courses, my students can leave questions below the videos. And since they're paid customers, those are the ones I respond to. I don't respond to most of the YouTube comments. I don't have time, but I respond to my customers. And they get access to me and get closer into my circle. And the more they spend, the closer they get to me. So that proximity is huge. And then a huge part of it is you can do Q&As and you can do like actual coaching sold alongside the videos so that they're getting that sort of personalized coaching alongside. They can get their specific question answered, which is harder to do en masse in a podcast or on YouTube. So at the end of the day, that's some of the nuance of it, but it's also when, people pay attention when they pay, and so they know if they paid for something, they're going to watch it, they're going to do it. They're more likely to get results. And so they're going to be satisfied with their purchase. So the way I look at it, to your question, Cody, is I wouldn't have anything to sell. I would have no one to sell to if I didn't build an audience. And the way you build an audience, in my opinion, is you give so much content that's discoverable on YouTube and a search on Google. People share it. Oh my gosh, listen to this podcast. Like the podcast you guys have is amazing. You got to listen to this episode of the show. They were talking about this, and this. It spreads. It's easy to spread. So it's like marketing for you when people are sharing your stuff. And that's how I was able to grow to one of the largest YouTube channels for the recording revolution at the time in that space, because people were sharing my videos. And that was, now my numbers were higher. I had more people going through my sales funnel. I could sell more products. But the other reason is when I give out content, I build loyalty. I build trust. People can test drive my stuff. They get a sense of whether they like learning from Graham or not. And it really weeds out and it like curates my ideal customer. So only the people that I really will connect with are going to be the ones going deeper with me who will then buy. And so I think it's the perfect opportunity it's the best way to grow is to give. And my favorite book of all time is The Go-Giver. You're talking about business or personal development. Everybody should read The Go-Giver. You read it in an hour. Bob Berg, John David Mann. It's a little parable, but the idea is it's a beautiful way to describe the power of generosity in making more sales or growing the thing you're trying to grow. When you focus on serving someone else first, it feels like you're lacking because you're giving it away, but all you're doing is building so much trust and rapport. You're building all these lanes of like flow back to you, and you're going to have more customers than you can imagine, and you're going to have more experience helping people that will then translate into your paid products. So I would never go back and give away less content. If anything, I'd give away more content if I had more time.
So I think this is a little bit of a continuation of the same idea, the same subject, but you talked about how, think about yourself like a month or a year ago, and it's almost like you're teaching yourself, like you've been on this journey and now you've learned that. And I think sometimes when people get into something like this where they want to teach others, they start second guessing, like, do I really have this like elite level knowledge that people want? I mean, I just taught myself, like, why wouldn't somebody else just teach themselves? I don't know if you could just talk a little bit about like finding that confidence that there's people out there who do genuinely need your help. Like, even though there's a million other places they could find some help, and even though sure it is possible they could maybe get there without you, that you do have something to offer, even if you're only, 30% a little further than maybe your audience members.
Yeah, you nailed it, Justin. People don't need an expert, right? They just need you to help them get results. And these days, people aren't even looking to gurus as much as they were 20 years ago. They really actually prefer normal people where they can choose their teacher. So of all the people, they can pick someone in that field that they like the way they talk, they like the way they think, they maybe have similar background as them. And so people are selecting their mentors by all sorts of things, personality, values, worldview, whatever it is. And so all that matters is, can you get them results? And that's why I don't like the language expert or expertise, because it trips up my students. They're like, I don't feel like an expert. Like, when am I going to feel like an expert enough, to jump in and do this? It's scary to put out content. So I think less of thinking about yourself, less is going to help, because worrying about your expertise is a very narcissistic thing. It's actually selfish. Am I good enough? You're looking at yourself. The best thing you could do is get your eyes off of yourself, look at this person that needs help and ask, could I help them? Like, if they were like my friend in real life, I probably could help them. If they came to me and asked you guys, Cody, Justin, could you help me with this? If it's something that you've helped people with in the past, that's the same people on the internet. There's just more of them. And that's what I think about, is just helping a friend who's become like an avatar of like all my customers, helping that friend achieve some results. And to your point, I only need to be a step ahead of them or 30% ahead of them. As I have gotten better in both of my businesses and journey, I have more to teach and more to share. And so I'm able to pull people further up the mountain. I can't take somebody where I haven't gone, but I don't need to. I can just find the people that are further behind the journey than I am and just focus on them. And you can make a ton of money doing that. You don't have to help everybody. You don't have to have a big audience. That's what I love about the internet, is you don't have to be huge. The goal isn't to be huge. The goal isn't to be famous. The goal is to build a business, and you can do that by finding your small tribe of people that you can carry along to the next level.
So I'm someone who's listening to this episode. I just jumped over that confidence hurdle. I'm ready to create content. Let's go back to your earlier example, actually, Graham, with the dad who wants to lose 20 pounds. I'm a dad. I just lost 20 pounds. I'm on my journey. I'm 30% ahead of the people in my target audience. What is that first piece of content that I need to create? Or how do you just go about framing and doing the research to like figuring out whether it's a video or a podcast or a blog post? Like, how do you even know what to create once you decide that you want to create stuff around a certain content area?
Yeah, there's a lot of great things you could do. One thing is, if you know of a group of like people trying to lose weight or dads trying to lose weight, you can sort of lurk and sneak in those pre-existing groups and see what they're asking or see what they're talking about and get a sense of like, people are interested in this. People struggle with this. You can I like to look on Amazon sometimes and see what books are published under the topic and read the 2 to 4 star reviews. I ignore the 5 and the 1s because those are the fanboys and the haters, but the 2 to 4 star reviews, which are usually the more honest about like, hey, this is what I liked about the book, and this is what I felt like was missing for me. And that gives me an indication of what gap is there, what people are looking for. You can also just post on social or ask your friends that are dads, like, hey, I'm trying to help some of the dads around me like lose weight. Like if that's you, have you ever, like, what have you been struggling with, or what's been your biggest challenge, or what's your biggest goal? Like, what do you want to achieve in your fitness, like as a dad, and why is it hard? And just see what they say. And I think that little bit of research will give you like easily 10 to 20 content ideas of people have these 5 to 10 questions. People believe these 5 to 10 myths. People get stuck with this. People are looking at these 5 to 10 products. Some of them are good. Some of them are bad. And if you look at really big YouTube channels on topics, you can get a sense of the type of content they're making. And you're going to notice they're going to be answering people's burning questions. They're going to be talking about certain techniques. They're going to be exposing myths and lies. Like, what are the commonly held beliefs that you disagree with? They're going to be reviewing products. And so those are some frameworks of types of content you can make. And just start with what you think at that point. There's 2 types of content once you get into this. There's planned content and demand content. And so planned is what you want to go create based off of what you know, what you think you know at least. And then demand content is once you have made some content and some people react to it, what are they asking for more of? And that's what kind of content you should make as well. And that's why you need to start to then get some feedback to then be able to have more, questions to answer. That's how, again, I got started. I posted, and my first year of content was probably based off of what people were asking in those first 10 videos. And that gave me an unlimited amount of stuff to talk about.
So you're at that place in your journey where you're ahead of some folks. You figured out what you want to talk about. You're starting to put out that content. You're giving away some stuff. You're figuring out your first products. I can imagine the next biggest thing people are going to wonder is, how in the world do I know how much to charge somebody for this? Like, so, for somebody getting started out, what would you recommend them do to understand that market and figure out what their value is?
Yeah, this is a hard one. There are some helpful tried and true frameworks that have been true for the last decade plus and are, I think, still holding true. Like, you don't want to play in the really, really bargain basement. You don't want to be the Walmart of content online. So don't think of what you sell in terms of like books. Because again, like a book, we just have the world knows, like, I'm not going to spend more than $25 on a book. It seems like, when books are worth way more than that, right? Like, books change lives. So it's sad to see a book is really not, it's worth way more than that. But when you're selling something like a video course, even if it's just like an hour or 2 hours with some videos explaining a concept, you could take the same material in a book and teach it in a video course where they can watch and listen, and there's downloadables and they can ask questions, and the value goes way, way up, at least the perceived value, because it's such a better learning experience than reading a book. So I tell people, minimum you should charge $50 for whatever you sell if it's a one-time purchase. So I think courses between $50 and $200 is a great range to live in. If you're in a hobby niche, if you're teaching something that can help people make more money, or it helps them in their business or their career, then you can play in a higher level, $500 to $1,000 or even beyond. When you get above $500 or $1,000, typically it works better these days to have some sort of live coaching element to it. So it's not just the videos. Competition has kind of driven those price anchors a little bit more. But anything's possible. I mean, you can sell $5,000 coaching packages as a group, but you probably want some live element there. But I say for people starting out, don't be cheaper than 50. Don't be more than 200 as a starting point. And you're going to be in that sweet spot of, I think Tim Ferriss even talked about this in the 4-Hour Work Week. I think that was even a range he believed in of it was easy to sell because you don't have to think too much about it when you're swiping your credit card in that range, but it's enough of a price bump that it's not the bargain basement $10 course people that are going to complain the most, demand the most, and want to pay the least.
So on the marketing side of things, I know you mentioned like getting people in front of your products is one of the most important things. Like, you can't sell without an audience. You could get an audience from YouTube or podcasting or any of these social media platforms, but figuring out how to compete and actually like be at the, the top of the barrel in terms of like the people to choose from for a specific topic, that takes some time in figuring out. And I was wondering, I know, Graham, you've kind of really niched yourself down and been able to outcompete some of the other bigger YouTubers in your particular instance in your space. And I was wondering if you could kind of talk about how you've been able to do that. Because, obviously if someone's like a new YouTuber and they just go to, say, Mr. Beast's page and they try to like copy his top 10 videos with the same titles and the same topics, like there's no way that they're going to get more eyeballs on their videos than Mr. Beast is getting on his for the same topics and the same things. So like, how do you go about selecting things that you can actually be competitive for and actually show up, at the top of the rankings for?
Well, there's like two things happening here, right? Like one is, what's your goal? Like your goal shouldn't be to be a big YouTube channel. Like what's the point in that? Unless your model is brand deals, sponsorships, and ad revenue, which is the most visible model. So when people think that, people think that's what I do. Like, oh, don't you just want to, that's what you're trying to do is you make money selling ads or brand deals. No, I make money selling my own products. I'm a real business. I just use YouTube as a lead generation discoverability engine. So just decide what game are you playing? It's a lot harder to play the Mr. Beast game of like have the biggest channel on YouTube and the most views, because it literally every view is going to lead to dollars in your bank account. And so it's hard and it's unpredictable, because if you fall out of favor with the people or the algorithm, you lose money. I would prefer to control my income. So choose what game you're going to play. Let's say you're not going to play the Mr. Beast game. You're going to play the business game. Then the size of your audience doesn't matter nearly as much as the way you monetize it. So you can be literally unknown and still make a crap ton of money. One thing to consider then on top of which game you're playing is YouTube, let's say in particular, has changed their algorithm over the last couple of years to be way more democratized to brand new channels. So for example, my first channel, The Recording Revolution, has like 600,000 subscribers. I remember a day when all of a sudden, where I was ranking number 1 or 2 for most of these topics in my niche because of the size of my channel, there were some brand new baby channels that were showing up higher than me. I remember getting really pissed off. I was like, who are these people? They have nobody on there. Why are they ranking higher? And the more I dug, the more I realized YouTube was starting to shift. This was probably 4 years ago. They were starting to make this shift of like, they wanted brand new YouTubers to be excited about YouTube. So they would keep uploading content because that's how YouTube makes money. And so they decided not to weight the size of your audience as high in the algorithm as they once did. I don't know what the percentage is, but they shifted it. And so I started to see it didn't matter how big you were. It mattered that did you have relevant content people were looking for, and did it get some engagement? And so I tested this on my 13-year-old last year when she was 12. We launched a YouTube channel one day because she was like, Dad, I want a YouTube channel. She wanted to do these video game walkthroughs for a game called Roblox. So I was like, this will be a perfect test. So she filmed this video, and then we wanted to upload it. We created a brand new channel. And then I asked her, well, what's this video about? She's like, well, it's about Roblox. It's about this specific game inside of Roblox, and we're doing this specific type of build. And so like, that's what you need to title the video. Don't be creative, be clear, right? So let's just make a very clear title. Same thing in the description. We uploaded this video. She has 0 subscribers. It's her first video. We upload it, we walk away. Come back 3 hours later. We get on a YouTube search on like an incognito browser, and we type in that video game and that game within the game, those basic keywords, and her video is on the first page of results.
Wow.
And she's 0. And there's like huge Roblox gamers that have these massive channels. And I was like, Chloe, you can rank on any of these things. It doesn't matter how big you are, but if you're publishing content that's relevant, searchable, you can rank. So if you take those two things in concert, anybody can rank, even if you're new. You don't have to be Mr. Beast. And then if you realize you don't ever have to be Mr. Beast to make a lot of money because of the way you sell your products, the kind of offers you create, the way you stack things like your own products and affiliate deals or affiliates, products or sponsorships, if you want to do that, or even one-on-one coaching, you could stack all these offers together and make really, really good money to the point where people are confused. Like people are sometimes confused with the amount of money I can make on my Graham Cochrane channel because it's much smaller than the Recording Revolution. They have in their minds like a certain number of views equals a certain amount of dollars. And that's just not true. There's another game being played, which is we're selling our own products in the back end. So choose what game you want to play, and then you can rank right away. That's the power of YouTube.
And kind of continue a little bit on this theme of like the volume of input and what the outputs are. I know you've talked about before this idea of actually working like less to get what you want. And I'm just kind of curious if you could unpack that, because I think that's something people are always looking for is, we all have these super busy lives. So why in the world would it be a recommendation to actually maybe put in a little less effort into something?
Yeah, well, it's like maybe not less effort. It's just more strategic effort. So here's what I think. I think working all the time and hustling is probably the laziest thing you could do, right? Because it takes no amount of thinking or strategy to just keep doing stuff or to do all the things you see people doing. And okay, everyone's posting reels, I'll post reels. Like everyone's on TikTok, I'll get on TikTok. That's the laziest thing you could do. The smartest thing you could do is sit down and analyze what really drives revenue in my business. And there might be, let's say 10 things that do, but maybe 2 of those things drive 90% of the revenue of my business, and the other 8 drive just a little bit. Could I cut those other 8 things and lose just a smidge of revenue, but have most of my revenue and have, 4/5 of my time back to either just live my life or double down even a little bit on the things that are working. And I could double my income by still working half as much if you follow that 80-20 principle. But it does take some thinking, and most people are just too in the rhythm to stop and think. So I'm a weirdo, and I decided early on, like, I'm going to make it a game every year to see how few hours I can work and see if revenue doesn't go down. And if it can go up, even better. But even if it just stayed the same, I want to see, like, does everything really matter? So I started cutting back on how much content I posted. I started cutting back on interacting on YouTube with all the comments. I started cutting back on social media, and none of it made a difference. And I was able to figure out what really drives revenue for this type of business. And once you know that, you're so much more freed up to live your life, to do more creative things. That's why I had time to write a book. That's why I have time to take my kids to school and pick them up every day. I mean, this is sort of the financial independence world when we think about, like, amass a certain amount of money, 4% rule, live off of that. You can have that without that large chunk of money if you have this type of business that only requires the 5 to 10 hours a week that you want to give it, where you just show up for an hour or 2 a day and play with it and have fun with it. That's kind of like living the FI lifestyle. Is you have control over your time. You've got income coming in that's predictable. But it does take going against the grain of even the other coaches that teach what I do, which is, like, do all this stuff. They have to make themselves look important. And I don't feel the need to look important. I want people to feel as free as I am to, like, live my life and have a family and have time to take care of myself and whatever else you want to do. And I think it's the most efficient thing you could do, and the most respectful thing you could do is only do what you need to do in the business, no more and no less.
Amen. Yeah, no, really appreciate you walking through the mindset. And I do want to dig into the numbers here. As you know, Graham, this is a financial independence podcast. You just talked about a couple of your businesses. You're working like 10 hours a week, I think I read in your bio. You're running 2 7-figure businesses. I think you left that part out because you're a humble guy. But guys, 2 7-figure businesses working around 10 hours a week. Can we talk about, like, the evolution, though? How do you get up to that point? Because I think a lot of people sound like they're listening to this episode. They're like, that's nice. Like, I kind of want to get started. I might start a YouTube channel. I might start a podcast or a blog or start creating content on any of these short platforms. But, like, what does this look like played out 10 years? Like, and that's exactly your story, Graham. So can we kind of talk about, like, the evolution of your income? You can get as granular as you want with the numbers. Just like, I guess, what were you making, pre-2009 when you quit that job? And then what were you making that first year and then up until now?
Yeah. So, when I lost my job, I was making $35,000 a year, working 40 hours a week. And so my wife, she was working too at the time. So we both combined were making 60. And then when we had our baby, we knew she wanted to stay home. And so my, like, long-term dream goal was to replace both of our salaries and make $60,000 a year. If I could do that from home, talking about music, like, game over, life is awesome. So year 1, I made $7,000 working full time on my business. Year 2, though, I hit the $60,000 mark. And that was the first time I realized, I was doing the same amount of work. It was the first time I realized the power of having content out there on your blog, on YouTube, that's searchable, discoverable every day, even though you made it a year ago, and how that could start to grow. And I was like, oh man, there's something here about this. It's not going to be linear. It's going to be exponential. Year 3, I made $120,000. And that's when we had the most fun of our life ever. Cause I was like, dude, our budget is, I think it costs us $2,000 a month to live. It was super cheap, and we're making $10K a month. Like, I bought a minivan, I got us a nicer house, and we kept the first house as a rental. I was like, dude, I'm rich. This is awesome. So that was a lot of fun. And then the next year, 250,000, and then the next year, 500,000, and then 600,000 the year after that. And then it took me probably just 2 more years to hit the $1 million a year mark. I think 2018 was the first year I hit $1 million in a 12-month period. And that was in the Recording Revolution, my first business. And that was also the same year I started my personal brand, what I'm doing now, as just like a passion project. Because again, it was only taking me 10 hours a week to run that. And now I'm doing $1 million a year. And I was like, and I was so interested in online business. And I had done an article in Business Insider that got me a little bit of press. So people were emailing me from all over the world. They were like, could you teach me the business model? I don't care about your music thing. I just want to know, how did you build that business? And so I started coaching people for free, like people with personal fitness goals or businesses and all kinds of people. And I was like, oh, this is super fun too. So I wanted to build a brand just to have an outlet to talk about. I basically just wanted a Twitter profile so I could talk about online business because my music people didn't care. And so I launched that business just for fun. That started growing. It was $100,000 year one, $250,000 year two, $500,000 year three. And then we did 1.2 million last year. It'll be about like 1.7 this year. So it's been crazy. And the parallel of both of my businesses, and then I've coached a lot of students who have done multi-six and seven-figure businesses as well. They all have the same curve, which is this is a slow way to get going. It is not sexy at first. It really isn't. But every video you post or every podcast you post, it's evergreen. It'll live forever. Unlike social media, like it'll disappear unless you go viral. And so you're building something. You're building all these little pathways back to you in the internet. And eventually it adds up to something once you've had a few more products, more people are hearing about you, but it's not a lot of money up front, but it's work that lasts forever. And now I'm reaping the rewards of stuff I did in 2009, 10, 11, 12. And it's kind of silly how much money can be made with how few hours you work, because it's really no longer tied to what you're doing. It's what you've built. You've built an asset, just like saving up $1 million in an investment. It's not you working anymore. It's it working for you. It's the exact same way to think about it. Your business, if you do it this way, is just another asset you're building and investing in.
And just one little clarification question, because we're talking about like such an insane like earnings per hours. Are you saying that you only work 10 hours per week, or is it like you're doing 10 hours and there's some other people behind the scenes that you're hiring that's doing the work, or is it like, or there's literally only 10 hours of work being done?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm only working 5 to 10 hours a week. I have a small team doing some things for sure, like customer service, uploading stuff, making thumbnails. Over the years, I've hired a marketing director to like help think through strategy, that kind of stuff. But I don't even know how many hours he works. So it's like nobody knows. We achieve the goal. So it definitely, you can scale with team for sure. But for context, I never hired anybody until year 4, and I was already doing about $500,000 a year, and I was working about 20 hours a week. So I have a community of people that I take through, like where their goal is just to reach 6 figures, for example. And my goal for them, linear, is like, hey, let's grow your business. You've won the game. It's kind of arbitrary, but it's a lot of people's goals. Won the game when you're making $10,000 a month from your business, and it only takes you 20 hours a week to create that. And because it's not just money for me, it's time. They're very important currencies. So it's arbitrary, but it's like, hey, what are your income goals? But also, what are your hour goals? And you can do all of that without hiring a single person. I encourage people to make one hire just to learn the power of delegation, but I'm slow to do that. I hate delegating. I don't trust people to do it as well as myself. So I got work to do there. But yeah, you can make multi-6 figures working by yourself for 20 hours a week. Easy. It won't happen right away, but it's not hard work. It just takes some time.
Yeah, well, I just love that you shared that entire story. I mean, $7,000 in that first year. Like a lot of people probably mentally and financially just like couldn't weather the storm. And now you're making, 1.7 in one business and over $1 million in another business. But it started at $7,000 a year back, just putting video after video after video on food stamps. Like you probably didn't have a ton of confidence in the business at that point. And that's just what it takes, man. It's like the grit. So seriously, just appreciate you sharing your story. I'm really hoping that we have some Five Show listeners who, whether they want to take this like full time like you did, or even just having a little side business, creating content on whatever skills, whatever hobbies you're interested in. Because everybody has something to share. Everybody is better than other people at something. And if you just take the time to create a little bit of content on that, it could be a really profitable business in the future. But Graham, man, just want to thank you for coming on. And I want our listeners to have a chance to connect with you on whatever platforms, whatever mediums you see best fit. So where do you want to send people who want to learn more about you and your businesses and your coaching and everything you got going on?
Yeah, if you want to dive into my book, I give away the first 2 chapters for free at grahamcochrane.com/chapters. And then you can see the whole business model like mapped out and see if it's juicy enough for you. Start there. And then if you want to interact with me, only platform I'm on is Instagram at @thegrahamcochrane. And I'll pop in there every once in a while, but I don't spend a whole lot of time on social media.
Well, thank you, Graham, so much for giving us the time, the transparency, and just the great way of looking at things that maybe, people had gotten overwhelmed with or intimidated by in their minds. And I really love the way you broke it down for us today.
Yeah. Thank you, Cody. Thank you, Justin, for having me on. It's fun.
And it's